Yes, I am glad you mentioned that. They are characters that we don't see that are painted really vividly through the language of the other characters. Miss Pearl, who's in the neighborhood, who's a gossip. There's a restaurant owner, and we get to know the whole neighborhood, even though we're watching an intimate family story.
And the I'm Dave Drexler with Inside Art. Throughout its history, the Old Globe Theater has had a deep connection to the works of iconic American playwright August Wilson, an artist known as the American Shakespeare and theater's poet of Black America. Wilson's 10-play American Century cycle, chronicling the African-American experience throughout the 20th century, includes 2 world premieres staged by the Globe, The Piano Lesson and 2 Trains Running. Now through May 3rd, the Globe is presenting the cornerstone of Wilson's century cycle, the Tony and Pulitzer Prize-winning play Fences at the Donald and Darlene Shiley Stage in Balboa Park. Set in the 1950s, this powerful exploration of fatherhood, family love, legacy, and resilience follows Troy Maxson, a former Negro League baseball star, now a sanitation worker, as he grapples with the burden of his broken dreams. Joining me to preview Fences is one of America's leading interpreters of August Wilson's work, longtime San Diego-based director Delicia Turner Sonnenberg. Delicia, it's great to have you back with us on Inside Art.
Thank you for having me.
Delicia, this is not the first time you've directed Fences, and I want to know how this kind of fits in overall with your experience of directing August Wilson's plays in general.
I've directed Fences, Jim the Ocean, Piano Lesson. I think and I'm gonna do another Jim of the Ocean soon. But so I've only directed those 3 in the cycle. So I have 7 more to go. But August Wilson wrote this cycle and left a legacy for Black American theater artists. And in my experience, a lot of the actors have done the plays more than once. So this will be my second Fences. In fact, the first one was for Signet in 2008.
Well, with this cycle of plays, August Wilson, who passed away unfortunately at the age of 60, he still left a tremendous legacy here. And the plays depict roughly a decade each in the African-American experience throughout the 20th century. And nearly all of them are set in his hometown neighborhood of Pittsburgh. And I believe Fences is as well.
Yes, Fences is. And in fact, our set designer, as we're thinking about this, because one of the things about coming back to a play almost 20 years later is like, of course, you grow and you mature, and understanding Troy's struggle, relationship to his family, desire to provide for them, without maybe the vocabulary to express his love for them, is interesting going back to approach it on this side in my 50s myself, right? Like Troy's in his 50s, I'm 56, Troy's 53. Like understand it on a deeper level than I did in my 30s. But yes, our set designer, looking back at this, the question is always, why this play now? And because of the legacy that's been left and wanting to honor that legacy, we wanted to incorporate the Hill District somehow in the set design. So that is something audiences can look forward to when they come to see it, so that we really place it in its environment.
You mentioned an interesting point there about how we as audiences and the society evolve in our own way, with the play as it goes through time. And as I look at the play, the idea of generational trauma probably was not necessarily so present in the mid-1980s when this first came out. But, it really does relate to Troy's experience in the play.
Yes, it does. And really this combination of social injustice and personal shortcomings, how those things intertwine in complicated ways that get passed on to the next generation and then the next, and how each generation has to navigate that, the cycle.
Well, tell us a little bit about your lead actor, in this case, portraying Troy Maxson and the character at large.
The actor playing Troy is Dorian Missick, and I think his Troy is extraordinary. And we've together been talking a lot about what kind of father Troy is, because like my early memories of the play, like he's Corey's dad, right? But he actually has two sons in the play, and how he fathers each of them. One's 16, one's 34. Um, the one of he Troy spent time in jail, so he missed his older sons growing up, and really like exploring not just one son but both father son relationships has been thrilling. And Dorian is beautifully portraying that.
The language of the play is so vivid, and that's one of the features of August Wilson, his greatness in that. And who are some of these other characters that make this play what it is?
Well, Troy is the main character. He's married to Rose, who I like to think of it as like Troy's the house and Rose is the home. And Rose also has her own all the characters have beautiful language. Uh, um, his older son, Lyons, his younger son, Corey, his brother, Gabriel, and his best friend, Jim Bono.
Now, one of the nice features and illuminating features for those who haven't been around Pittsburgh or certain neighborhoods is the vivid, the colorful characters that Wilson paints and brings to the stage of this kind of neighborhood. Those are in all of his plays, especially in Fences too.
Yes, I am glad you mentioned that. They are characters that we don't see that are painted really vividly through the language of the other characters. Miss Pearl, who's in the neighborhood, who's a gossip. There's a restaurant owner, and we get to know the whole neighborhood, even though we're watching an intimate family story.
And the history of the neighborhood, the history of the people in the neighborhood, where they came from, right?
Exactly. Troy has a speech that tells his journey from coming from the South to the North, and how he hooked up with some other guys and walked 200 miles, I think he says, from the South to the North. And when he got to Pittsburgh, he thought he would be free, but they found themselves living in tents and on the bridges and so on.
How would you say, this experience with Fences compares to your first time? What did you want to do differently this time as opposed to the first time that you directed it elsewhere?
This time with Fences, what I really wanted to concentrate on is the specificity of the family, the deepening the relationships. I mean, age gives perspective, and making sure that the relationships are vivid and specific, because I find that the more specific a thing is, the more universal. And one of the things, as I was doing the research, I approached it like I never done it before, and so I started all the research from the beginning, and I found an interview that August Wilson did with the Kennedy Center that really inspired me. And one of the things he was talking about, his own inspiration, the artist Bearden, and he talked about the reason he loves that artist is because he paints Black American life in all of its richness and fullness, with authenticity and without sentimentality. And that is what August was aspiring to do in his cycle. And that is what I'm trying to honor with this production of Fences.
Well said. And, one other thing about August Wilson I'm reminded of is that he would include in a lot of his plays a character that had some sort of mental illness or some other challenge in that way. Is that the case here in Fences? Yes.
In fact, Troy's brother fought in World War II and came back home with a metal plate in his head. We would call that a traumatic brain injury today. And he is a valued member of the family.
Well, Delicia, the play set in the late 1950s, the backdrop there, though not necessarily overtly political in nature. Tell us the importance of that time period in the African American experience as expressed in this play?
I think it being set in 1957 is important because that is a time in American history where Black folks are caught between a violent past and hope for a better future, right on the cusp of the civil rights movement and all the battles fought and won there. And so I think that's really important.
And the title of the play, Fences, that has multiple meanings and connotations in this play. Can you take us through a few of those metaphors?
Yeah, Troy's building a literal fence for his wife, but also, as the play explores ideas of family, love, and responsibility, it also explores the fences that protect or confine him, Troy, and those he loves.
We've been talking about a new production of August Wilson's Tony and Pulitzer Prize-winning play Fences, running now through May 3rd at the Old Globe Theater in Balboa Park. And I've been speaking with the show's director, Delicia Turner Sonnenberg. Delicia, thanks again for joining us for a few moments on Inside Art.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
August Wilson's Fences runs now through May 3rd at the Old Globe Theater's Donald and Darlene Shiley stage in Balboa Park. For tickets and more information, you can visit theoldglobe.org. Inside Art is made possible with support from the members of Jazz 88.3. Replays and extended versions of every Inside Art broadcast are available online at jazz88.org/Inside Art. Our theme is created and performed by Bill Mays, whose music is available at billmays.net. Again, my thanks to Delicia Turner Sonnenberg and Emmett Cohen. For Jazz 88.3, I'm Dave Drexler. Join me again on air and online for another edition of Inside Art. Jazz Inspired is next.